So one of the unique things about the Everi business model is we gave our learning platform away for free to schools. We got organizations who cared about supporting things like financial literacy to essentially underwrite the cost of bringing that to the schools that they cared about. We've now done the same thing at PlayVS. We've completely eliminated all competition fees from any school who wants to participate with us across the country. And we started a journey at the beginning of last year to assemble an ecosystem of partners who care about helping kids get involved in PlayVS.
Welcome to Financial Freestyle here on Yahoo Finance. It's your boy, Ross Mack. Now look, whether you're a professional on Wall Street, a retail investor, or someone that's just looking to change their overall financial situation, there's always a first step you got to take. And guys, look no further, because I'm speaking to some of the most influential people in finance and learning about their path to economic prosperity. And today, guys, I'm sitting with the John Chapman, CEO of PlayVS, an educational and sports platform that provides competitive gaming. John, my man. Appreciate you.
Great to be here, Ross. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks so much for being here. Obviously, your name ring bells, right? PlayVS is huge. And so, before we even get there, right, I just want to know, to the audience, who is John Chapman?
Well, I'm the CEO of PlayVS. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a dad. I'm a sports enthusiast, and I spent my entire career impacting others. So I've literally been in my professional career after college for almost 29 years. And I've done it in, like to say, 3 acts, all in roles where I was serving others, primarily in the education space.
I love it. So let's talk about, prior to PlayVS, right? Tell me about Everi.
Sure. Yeah. Everi was my first entrepreneurial venture. We founded it. We just turned 17. We founded it in January of 2008. Kind of an odd time to start a business, especially one that was around inspiring young people to be more financially literate. Obviously, if we all remember January 08, 09, kind of the Great Recession. But it actually ended up giving us a lot of wind in our sails to build Everi, because there was quite a bit of focus on financial literacy. Obviously, there was a lot of mistakes folks made in the mortgage crisis and not understanding complex financial vehicles, et cetera, et cetera. And we just thought we wanted to start a business where we could reach children at a young age, middle and high school, in a medium through a digital learning platform that they were more and more accustomed to using. Of course, now they're really accustomed to using it. They're digital natives on their mobile phones. But back then, we built something that was, on a laptop-based digital learning platform, and we ended up scaling that business to reaching over 30,000 schools by the time I left in 2023. And then we expanded into topics beyond financial literacy, really in areas that put a lot of pressure on students, things like health and wellness, career preparation.
Nice.
And it was an incredible journey. And along the way, what was interesting, and one of the things that inspired me to be interested in taking over as the CEO of PlayVS, was we had an opportunity to build education programs, speaking of Celtics, for many of the North American professional sports leagues. Nice. And in many cases, those were around topics that they, cared about, were related to their sport, et cetera, et cetera. But I had a chance to realize that sports has a really powerful platform.
Yeah.
I was more interested in sort of getting involved in building my own, sports platform. And so that's when I learned about PlayVS. I'd heard about PlayVS because we shared investors. NEA led our Series A venture round in 2010. They're also PlayVS' largest investor. And so I'd known about the business. I'd been inspired by the business, the founding CEO and his ideas and what it had become. And what I realized is I could start to build something in esports, which is what we're doing now at PlayVS. Happy to tell you more about that. But really, what's interesting with your podcast here, it's kind of cool that my founding entrepreneurial journey was related to financial literacy.
No, I mean, it's one, right? The fact that you find the intersection with sports and financial literacy and gamification, et cetera, like, it's important, right? Like, I actually have a Netflix doc called Get Smart with Money, where I'm literally teaching a guy that's on the Chicago Bears how to better manage and invest his money, right? I have a partnership with McDonald's where I literally go and talk to all the McDonald's All-Americans about
Oh, that's
investing,
cool.
financial literacy,
Yeah.
money management,
Yeah.
budgeting, et cetera, you name it, right? And
Yep.
so, let's actually talk about Everfi one more,
Yep.
before we even segue to PlayVS,
Sure.
because
Absolutely.
why is that so important, right? Especially you start at that young age, because
Yeah.
it's one thing to talk to them when they already have the money, but
Right.
I tell a person, if you can't manage $10,000, you can't manage 10 million.
Right.
It's literally no difference.
Right. And it's really important early on. And I'll tell you why from kind of a personal anecdote perspective. When I was in college, back when we had like cable boxes and had to pay cable bills in the late 90s, my roommate had stayed in our apartment after we graduated. And he didn't pay the cable bill for the last 3 months. He basically stayed there through the summer after he graduated. But the cable bill was in my name.
Yeah.
And so lo and behold, when I go to kind of open up my first credit card, I realize my credit score has been damaged.
Wow.
Like, why? I mean, I think I've been pretty responsible here. But what I realized is that, learned after the fact that if your name's on the bill and if someone else doesn't pay it, your credit score is affected. And, credit scores for us when we started Everfi was one of the really basic, practical pieces of knowledge that everyone needs to understand, because it's a vehicle for you to get, lending power, to get a credit card, to buy a car, to buy a home. And so what we tried to do with Everfi was to give those students those real basics and give it to them in a really relatable way.
Nice.
So that they could apply it. They could see how, making bad decisions that affected their credit would lower the score. And we hoped I'm confident we inspired, literally millions of students over the 17 years that the business has been around to hopefully get those basics. And then once they have those basics, then like you said, you can start to think about accumulating wealth through investments and making other wise financial decisions. But we were always on a mission to use technology to scale financial education. I think we did that pretty successfully.
That's epic, man. I'll tip my hat to you, right?
Thank
I think
you.
that's extremely commendable, because I always tell people, right, financial literacy is its own language.
Right.
And the earlier you learn how to speak it, you'll become fluent in it. And I think it's important to start young. And so shout out to the certain states in America that are actually mandating financial literacy in the curriculum.
Yep.
And maybe you guys were probably, you probably one of the reasons as to why that is becoming.
Yeah, we definitely would speak to a lot of policymakers and
Nice.
help them understand it. Certainly folks in, state departments of education who would work with those legislators in their states to make that the case. So
That's
absolutely.
But let's talk about the growth of esports and what made you interested in this sector, and obviously taking over as CEO of PlayVS in 2023.
2023. So yeah, I've been the CEO for about 18 months.
Nice.
And we're really proud of what we've been able to accomplish. Our mission really is to provide, to make esports an officially sanctioned sport. Just like getting financial literacy approved in states, we're on a mission at PlayVS to make sure that esports becomes an officially sanctioned sport in every state in our country. Right now, we're happy that in 27 of the 50, it is.
Wow.
Where a young person can earn a varsity letter, can compete for a state championship in an esports title. So it could be in Mario Kart, it could be in League of Legends, it could be in Rocket League, it could be in Madden. These are all exciting opportunities where kids who are on an esports team, they're again earning a varsity letter, winning a state championship, hoisting the same trophy that a traditional sport like football or basketball are hoisting. So it is we continue to try to get as many participants as possible. And one of the things that also inspired me at PlayVS, which relates to my experience at Everfi, is I really saw when I started that in order for esports to grow and continue to be legitimized and be a sanctioned sport, we had to eliminate all barriers to participation. So one of the unique things about the Everfi business model is we gave our learning platform away for free to schools. We got organizations who cared about supporting things like financial literacy to essentially underwrite the cost of bringing that to the schools that they cared about. We've now done the same thing at PlayVS. We've completely eliminated all competition fees from any school who wants to participate with us across the country. And we started a journey at the beginning of last year to assemble an ecosystem of partners who care about helping kids get involved in PlayVS. And part of the reason they should care is that esports today gives many kids, a purpose that they didn't have before they started to compete with us. Almost half of the students who play on one of our teams, this is the first extracurricular activity they've ever done.
Wow.
So you're literally pulling them and giving them purpose. I got a message just yesterday from a teacher. We just launched Marvel Rivals, which, if you don't know, is one of the hottest video games amongst teenagers today.
Nice.
And she said, I can't thank you enough for introducing Marvel Rivals to our platform, because the 3 kids who just started the esports team used to sit by themselves at lunch.
Wow.
With not a lot of friends. And now they've got a new purpose. They're teammates in this game. They're on the official esports team for the school. And that is just really amazing. And so organizations who we partner with are inspired by stories like that. And we are inspired to go find as many of them as possible so we can create a robust and growing esports ecosystem amongst amateurs here in the US and hopefully across the world.
So let's actually talk about this, right? Obviously, you were a collegiate athlete, right? And so when you think about the similarities when it comes to, being on sports teams, let's actually talk about some of the lessons and whether it's, teamwork and learning how to work through adversity. But like, what are some of the things that, to a typical person that's playing maybe varsity football is actually on the varsity esports Madden team as well?
Yeah, no, it's so one of the things that's most powerful that inspires me and our team every day are those intangible lessons you get playing esports. They're the same lessons you get in traditional sports. You think about things like teamwork, communication, resilience, perseverance, goal setting, being able to shift strategy in the middle of a competition. All things you do playing football, playing basketball, but you also do it playing esports. And so for those kids, again, half of them who've never, maybe played a sport or done anything extracurricularly, they're learning lessons that are so valuable that they then can apply to other endeavors in their life, whether it's other endeavors at school, once they go to college, whatever they pursue professionally. Those are invaluable, lessons for them. And at the end of the day, those kids, you see it in their eyes when they're competing, and it's just the same joy and spirit you see with traditional sports. I had a chance to attend my first live state championship in Massachusetts, my home state, last May. And what was cool about it was at Helix Esports Theater, which is adjacent to Gillette Stadium where the Patriots play. And what was really cool, just through a mutual friend, I was able to invite one of the Patriots captains, Dietrich Wise Jr., to come and give some opening remarks before the esports championship. And what was really cool was here you have a complete intersection of all these vectors, right? You've got the person who's the captain of the professional traditional sports team coming to the theater next to the traditional sports stadium to talk to students who are about to compete for a state championship. That's the same trophy that got hoisted in the fall by the teams that competed for the state high school football championship. So it's just an incredible convergence, and it just inspired me so much. And then what's also really cool, and I just have to always mention it, and one of the other things I really love about esports is it's completely coeducational. The first final that I observed was in Mario Kart. It's 4 versus 4.
Nice.
6 of the 8 competitors were girls.
Wow.
And one entire team was all made up of girls.
That's epic.
And so you get, you level the playing field between genders. We have a great partnership with Special Olympics and their unified schools in leveling the playing field between those who have disabilities and those who don't. Esports can be an incredible medium that connects folks and creates opportunities that just weren't there 10 years ago.
That's epic. How many schools are you all in right now?
So we are in almost 5,000 schools across the country. And what's really cool is, as I mentioned to you before, eliminating those barriers to participation. When we went to a model where we, eliminated our competition fees, in the 12 months since we did that, we almost doubled the amount of participating schools. Nice. And so, that sort of thesis I had of eliminating those fees helps grow participation certainly played out.
I love it. Guys, we got to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to have even more with John Chapman, and we'll be talking about PlayVS and esports. All right, guys, welcome back here to Financial Freestyle. We're here with John Chapman, CEO of PlayVS. Now, look, one thing I will say, right, is streaming is the biggest thing in the world, right? And
absolutely.
So when it comes to esports, you're seeing whether it's the Kai Sanants, the Ninjas of the world, like literally taking streaming and making real money,
Yeah.
right? And so when you think about the future of esports, let's actually talk about, where you continue to see revenue growth coming, and at some point, how PlayVS is going to play a big part in that.
Yeah. Well, we're first of all, PlayVS, we're trying to build the largest, amateur competitive gaming platform in the US and eventually in the world. So think about anything pre-professional. So we're not, we're not in the leagues where they're playing at a professional level, but we think there's a real opportunity for us to be the definitive leader in that kind of pre-professional space. And so the more and more opportunities we expand there, the more we believe that esports will continue to be legitimized and looked at as an actual sport right alongside other traditional sports. But one of the things that's interesting about streaming, when I think about it, is I think it also provides our community real opportunity. Because you think about today, and I know you're familiar, we talked a little bit about it, some of the NIL opportunities for athletes who are competing in traditional sports in high school and college. There's really opportunity for esports players as well, because some of our best players in the country, they can just start playing the game and streaming while they're playing. And if they've got a engaging personality that creates an audience following, that all of a sudden becomes a platform and an audience that they can monetize and, grow a small business off, and maybe even a substantial business off of it as they grow. And so one of the things that we try to do, and we're going to do more of it going forward, is making the kids who participate in our community aware of those opportunities. A little bit of a, what's a playbook on how you could get there, how you could, develop that streaming audience, and how could you ultimately monetize it. And then in addition to that, not only with streaming, but what's also really cool, and we've seen happen a lot in both high school and college, is, kids get more inspired to pursue careers in technical fields like STEM-based fields, and oftentimes there's just a high demand for the skills that a lot of these gamers have that they maybe didn't know that they could apply to some of those fields, and some of those fields can be quite lucrative. And so we're trying to also expose them to those opportunities. And we've got some great relationships with all of the publishers we work at PlayVS. I think it's one of our competitive advantages. We've got, great working relationships where we're often always talking to them about how do we, expose our players to your video game developers, to your engineers. We're literally just on with the guys from Epic yesterday, who produce Fortnite, and how we could create more opportunities. And the good news is they are wide open to it. They want to do it. And I think that's another really neat aspect of what kids get from playing in esports and playing on our platform.
So let's set the tone, right? What exactly does it look like, right? Obviously, right? So for instance, you just went to, the state championship, right?
Yep.
Are all it was a 4-on-4 Super Mario. Does everybody have on headsets? Is it being streamed? Are they trash talking? Like, give me an idea.
Well, so what's interesting, it's a great question. So we try to make it, first of all, towards that end, as I mentioned earlier in our conversation about being sanctioned, we try to, create an atmosphere where the kids go, instead of going to the gymnasium to play basketball, they're going to the computer lab to play their esports titles and to practice and to do competitions. And obviously when they're playing against another school, our software platform connects into that school, provides support, mitigates any disputes.
Nice.
But what we also do, which is often much different than maybe when kids are playing on their own, is we monitor and create a really safe environment. We try to eliminate all toxicity and any misbehavior from our matches. And I think that's something that also helps the state athletic associations, the schools, the athletic directors realize that this is, we're not going to get any of that, that BS and
cyberbullying.
Yeah, we're going to create a safe place for these kids to learn, like we talked about earlier, the value of competition. And so so the kids go into their computer labs, they play, they practice. Again, our platform connects them virtually. And then at the end of each season, in the fall and the spring, there's a live in-person event, like I mentioned, in Massachusetts. And we do that all over the place. We stream it. And then the other really cool thing, which I love talking about, and it's such a unique opportunity we have with esports, is we actually have what we call the PlayVS Cup, which is essentially the national championship for esports in high school. So think about that. Like, it's hard to have the national championship in basketball. There's no version of March Madness for high school teams. You might have the McDonald's All-American game. You might have a couple good teams play each other once during the season. But here at PlayVS, in all of our titles, we take the winners from each of the states that compete with us.
Nice.
They do a 4-week we call it like May Madness, leading up to the PlayVS Cup finals, which is in the early June. And those kids compete and they win the national championship. We stream it. It's a really big deal. And I can't wait for it this June.
That's epic. Well, look, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, right? Like esports is here to stay, and more importantly, is growing, right? What would you say are some of your best lessons that you learned from Everi, as well as that you're learning along your current, as CEO of PlayVS right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the biggest lessons is continue to always have a service-first mindset to our community. One of the things we're really proud of at Everi, we got up to 30,000 participating schools that worked on one of our curricula, whether it be financial literacy or something else. And like I said, we're almost at 5,000 today at PlayVS, and hopefully be at 30,000 soon. And what I've learned is, educators are some of the most important people, I think, in our country. My mother was an educator for 43 years. My sister's an educator. My brother-in-law is an educator. I've basically worked in education. So really kind of meeting the needs of those individuals, because ultimately they're the ones who spend the time after school at the computer lab helping the kids form their esports team, helping them practice, helping them compete. And so that kind of mindset of always really building that network is something I learned at Everi and I'm continuing to hone at PlayVS.
That's epic. If we could go back in time, you're a collegiate athlete, right?
Yeah.
18. What would you tell your 18-year-old self?
It's funny. I would actually tell myself to do more than sports.
Nice.
And I always joke with my wife. I met my wife towards the end of my time at Bowdoin College, where I went to school, and we took a class called The Anthropology of Humor. And it was like a skit-based class. And one of the things I've learned about myself as a CEO, I'm a good presenter, I'm a good storyteller, but I never tried like actual theater. And my wife would always ask me, she'd say, "Why, you're super funny, you're comfortable up there. It seems like you really like doing it." And I always thought, like, there's a stigma. I don't want to be a theater guy. I think of myself as an athlete. And if I had to do it over again, I would have expanded my diversity of extracurricular activities. And that's what's kind of cool about PlayVS. I feel like, we are providing an outlet for these kids who otherwise may not have gotten up and done it. Like I didn't get up and do theater to compete in a sport, to learn those lessons like we talked about. So that's what I would tell myself.
Well, we're in New York. We can go to Broadway. We can have you audition, or we can have you go up, and do some comedy at Caroline.
There you go. Yeah, it'd be fun.
But that's it for this episode. I truly want to thank Mr. John Chapman.
Thanks, Ross,
for coming. I think this was remarkable. To the people at home, I really hope this helps you on your own financial journey. And guys, more importantly, make sure you're here next week for a new episode here on Yahoo Finance.
This content was not intended to be financial advice and should not be used as a substitute for professional financial services.